In this example, we're going to simplify expressions in function notation. Given f of x equals x squared plus 7, find and simplify the following. Okay, let's take these one at a time. Let's look at a. A is f of p plus 1. What we want to do is we want to replace x with p plus 1. Since we have x squared plus 7, we now have p plus 1 squared plus 7. Now I want you to remember that p plus 1 squared is the same thing as p plus 1 times p plus 1. Please do not confuse p plus 1 all squared with p squared plus 1 squared. That's not the same thing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write this out. Now we'll need to use FOIL to multiply p plus 1 times p plus 1. I'm going to skip that middle step of multiplying everything out. So I'm just going to give you what the final answer is when you multiply p plus 1 times p plus 1. Okay, that would be when you, after you simplify everything, p plus 1 all squared is p squared plus 2p plus 1 plus the 7. The last step that we need to do is combine our like terms. 1 plus 7. And this would be the final answer for this portion of the problem. Now let's look at part B. This problem will have two parts. We will need to find f of a plus h, then we'll also need to find f of a and subtract the two. So let's calculate what f of a plus h is first. This would give a plus h all squared plus 7. A plus h all squared, again remember, that's a plus h times a plus h, would be a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. I'm going to drop down the plus 7. Now we're going to subtract f of a, which is just replacing x with a. We'll need to distribute that negative sign here. So notice that the a squareds will cancel out, and so will the 7s. What I'm left with is 2ah plus h squared. And this would be the simplified expression for this portion of the problem. Now let's move on to the last portion. In this last portion, let's first find f of a minus h. And then we'll take f of a and subtract off f of a minus h. F of a minus h would be a minus h all squared plus 7. This is going to give me a squared minus 2ah plus h squared plus 7. Now let's take f of a, which would be a squared plus 7, and let's subtract this entire expression here. We will need to distribute the negative to each item in this polynomial. And let's see what happens. My a squareds will cancel off, so will the 7s, and that leaves me with 2ah minus h squared. This is my simplified version of that expression.